Our big question today, are you ready for the real world? With the end of the semester right around the corner, you're probably gearing up to start a summer internship or even a full-time job. Whatever the next few months have in store for you, work-life balance, career pivots, and burnout are all probably front of mind, which is why I'm so excited to have Joann Park, the Director of Programming Strategy at Headspace Health, joining me for my last time here in Studio C. Joann, hi, so great to have you here.
So great to be here, especially on your last time at Studio C. That's so surreal.
It's crazy. And you were a Trojan. Crazy.
Fight on.
Fight on forever. Crazy that the last time you were here and going to school here, none of this existed.
I know, it didn't. It's insane. It's so amazing.
Insane. So, like I said, I think many Trojans, this is our last week of school, many Trojans are gearing up to start work, to go to those offices, maybe in a new city, even work 9 to 5, any type of job, and kind of make that transition from a classroom to a more corporate environment, which is no easy feat. And I think one of the scariest parts about it is that kind of that conversation and navigating the work-life balance is really difficult. So you've obviously had career experience in news, now at Headspace. How have you kind of found, that sweet spot as it relates to work-life balance?
Yeah, and it's a work in progress. Always a work in progress. And I think when you get older also, your priorities shift. So when, I was in your position, I was like, I am single, I am ready to take on the world, I have no one bringing me down. And it was really easy to make work my job. Like my work, my life, job, my life. And I moved to New York straight after graduating and had this fantasy, this glamorization, working at Viacom and walking through those big doors and being like, I spent 4 years at USC for this moment, to really test out my skills. And I fell into that, and my social life became my job. I was first one in, last one out, because there was something about, I'm that like rising star. And I kind of burnt out, as you kind of mentioned, not very quickly. I think it took maybe like 5 years for me to be a little bit disillusioned, to be like, oh wow, I'm giving so much into my career. But every time I hang out with my friends, we're talking about work. Like my work friends are my actual friends, especially when you move to a new city. And I think going through all of that and going through different companies, which I'm sure we'll get into, I kind of had this moment around who am I, and what do I want to do? Because it was so tied to what I thought I was supposed to do, like hearing a good job from my boss, getting that promotion, making a certain amount of money. And it totally lost sight of it. And, people are like, whoa, you're at Headspace now. It's a total pivot, like you said. And sometimes I'm like, is this an overcorrection? Because now there's a lot of work-life balance. And I'm like, I'm comfortable in chaos. Like, where do I go from here? Right. But for example, at my company now, we get every other Friday off. We call them mind days. Like, people are like, off. And I'm like, yes, like, that's the day I get my facial, my workout, my healing time, and really reset for the rest of the week. And it's crazy how productive everyone still is, and no one punishes you for it. So it's a learning progress. But I think going through those first few years of intense burnout, this chase really kind of sped up maybe even like a midlife crisis. You hear about that all the time, of just like, what have I done? I kind of felt that when I was 25, because I was going so hard. And now I feel like I'm working towards a good space.
And I can even tell that in your journey, you're already getting there, and it's something that I'm aspiring to create. I think the most challenging part from kind of what you were just touching on is being 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, and feeling that disalignment that you were just explaining, feeling like all I ever talk about is work, all I ever do is work, especially when, our parents' generation, it was like the mentality, first one in, first one out, climbing the ladder. I guess, how did you, as a junior level employee, cope with that and get to a point where you could say, this is not how I want to live anymore?
Yeah, I think this is something I recently started using, but think of yourself as like an athlete, right? You see world-class athletes put so much emphasis on rest and regeneration. Like even the top person at the NBA, he gets an off season? Why doesn't a normal human being who's using their mental capacity at full blast, why aren't they getting an off season? And I think also not succumbing to the social pressure of people being like, oh, like you do that, or oh, like you're only doing this. It's hard because, you know, sometimes you can have a great job, but then do you have a side hustle? Like, do you have a good social life? Are you balancing all of that stuff? And it's impossible. So being okay with staying true to who you are and understanding like this is at my limit, and it's okay if I miss that drink, or it's okay if I push the deadline 3 days. Just think of yourself as like that athlete of just like, if I want to be at peak performance, I have to rest. And
that totally, that's a great way to think about it too. I've never thought about myself and my career and my work like that, but and I love the Friday off day thing too. I think more companies and workplaces are going to need to follow suit with that. I mean, I guess in terms of burnout, general signs, symptoms for you, what were they? I know they can be different for everyone, but what would you say kind of this specific key identifying, like, okay, I'm starting to burn out here?
Definitely when I felt that when things that used to make me really happy was not really doing it for me anymore. Like seeing friends, it became more of a chore of like, oh, I have to see them. I canceled on them twice already because of work, or even just like working out, being like, I used to look forward to it, and now it's like I have to do it or else I failed and I was unproductive for the day. And I think those are clear signs, and also ultimately it's the people around you. You know, if people around you have a tendency to burn out or to be workaholics, or you're in a work culture that often celebrates the burnout of just like, oh my God, like, you know, I sent that email out at blank, or oh my gosh, can you believe like she's working this hard, then I think those are the signs as well. It's not just you, it's the people around you. It could even be your boyfriend or your partner or your roommate. You know?
Absolutely. I also think, I mean, in terms of pivots, like you did, you probably graduating from USC, never would have expected to go from CNN to Headspace, right? That's such a drastic jump. And I think what's so scary about it is that we, when I say we, it's myself included, adopt this identity of like, this is who I am and this is what I do. And as soon as we realize or have like even a touch of an inkling that that's not the case anymore, it's terrifying, because there's also this underlying uncertainty, right, of having no blueprint. Even, you know, you take a field like broadcast journalism. There used to be one way to do it, and now there's a million, zillion, jillion ways to tell a story. There's so many avenues you can take. That applies to almost every industry now. So I guess, what are your thoughts in terms of having no blueprint, maybe realizing you want to do something that has nothing to do with what you majored in college? What are your thoughts, you know, based on your experience there?
Yeah, I think it's letting go of your ego a little bit. I'm talking to myself, because I was very much, I'm going to work at major recognizable places that my grandpa in Korea can understand. He's like, Headspace? What is that? He cried when I quit CNN. Let's just be real. Because no one knew what that was. And I think I had to let go of the ego of just like, I feel so burnt out, I feel unappreciated, and like everyone around me feel the same way. And I'm not saying all news networks or all bosses are like that. That was just my experience. But it's like, but I'm doing things the same and interviewing at the same companies expecting a different result, right? And I think increasing that aperture possibility of just like, well, what do I at the core care about doing? It's storytelling. I don't have to do that at a major network. I can do that in an app. I can do that, you know, myself, right? And I think when I just got to the core of it, of like what I really wanted to do, it really increased all the opportunities. And I think there's also the fear though of just like, I mean, I understand why I did this, but what if like my next few jobs, people are like, this? Why? What happened? I think that's when your major comes into play, communication. Like my personal story is that I majored in comm. I went to Annenberg. I was at Annenberg student. And then I got into analytics my first year out of college for MTV News. From analytics to audience development, and now I'm in programming where I'm deciding the content slate. I'm working with head of content. It's like I kept spinning and spinning to be like, this is why I bring value. This is why it's a transferable skill. And as long as you keep that, you can go anywhere. And I always say to you, or to other students, I'm going to say this to you as well, is that I know it's good to get advice from people, but sometimes people don't want you to be great. They just want you to be like them. So I think you should just trust yourself, because so many people will be like, oh, well, don't do that, or, I don't think that's a good idea. You just have to trust yourself, because they're only projecting their vision of their life towards you, and it might not be what you want, right? So,
and even more difficult, sorry, mom and dad, when you watch this, with parents, because they love you and want the best for you, but they're also speaking on their own experience. But that is such great advice. And I mean, it kind of tees into kind of how I wanted to wrap things up, is just a piece of advice that you would have given yourself, if you just kind of take a trip down memory lane, you're about to graduate from USC, what would you tell yourself?
I would just tell myself, enjoy the ride, and stop. I could have worried half as much about my future and still got to where I am. I was that ambitious student, high achieving student, employee that was like, what if? What if I worked a little more, or where I did that one more workshop, or what if? And, I kept thinking that I had full control over my career, my destiny and everything, but sometimes things change. You might meet someone that's living in a different city, or you might love your job but not get along with your boss. Instead of just holding on and trying to control everything and to punish yourself when things don't work out as planned, just to be like, I'm just going to enjoy this ride. This totally blew up in my face. That's okay. That's a fun chapter in my book. So that's definitely the advice I'd give.
And I think that's such a beautiful note to end Ellavate on. I know that I'm going to continue to enjoy the ride. I cannot thank everyone in this media center enough for making this a possibility. College in the middle of a pandemic has not been an easy feat. It's been quite the opposite. But I have grown so much from this experience, and from being able to, take an idea of just wanting to help students elevate their lives, and now I'm sitting here doing just that. So hopefully everyone can continue to do that, even when I'm gone. So thank you to everyone in this media center. Thank you, Joann, for such a lovely interview and for your time. And we'll see you all soon.